you guys could do it.
I figure since they respond, we should probably make someone available.
Yeah, I think they basically ignored us, and then when I pushed it, they're like, "Oh, come look at the tape."
They still might make it televised today or tomorrow. I was still like, 'cause I don't know if something's changed. I don't know how old the video is.
I was thinking of that too. I just think we should just do it
Yeah.
instead of relying on what they've done. It'd still be good to go look at what they've done.
No, and I think we're gonna have someone from that's working on televised show more as a contractor for us go to the meeting with them because they can call if that comes up. Because I'm not making one. Like, I can look and be like, yeah, that's pretty bad, but like talking to lingo and all that kind of stuff, we've got better people.
Gotcha.
So Indy Criterion Inc. is our official name. Momentum Indy is the name of the event. So I would just say put our permits under Indy Criterion Inc. Yeah. That's our DBA. So we have an official.
That's good.
You know, they still have their shields up. I guess it's like it would be more hassle to take them down and have them put them back up.
They are kind of in the way, but I understand they sort of.
In case someone gets really excited, starts spitting.
Some nights you need that.
Yeah, I know. Get heated.
Let's go.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the July 13th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Public Works. My name is Dan Parker. I'm the chair of the board. Our board members present today to my left are Priscilla Keith and Bob Perrin. To my right is Susie Cordy. We expect Sabeka Jawanza to join us. Our legal counsel, Misty Mercer, is behind me. Our board secretary, Alice Drozier, is in front. First order of business is to adopt the agenda with the one walk-on item that we have in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda and add TS 21-011 to other business? Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Second by Susie Cordy. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. The agenda is adopted. Next is the approval of minutes for the June 22nd, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Seconded by Bob Perrin. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. The minutes are adopted. Next up is resolutions, and Alan Bacon, you're up first.
Good afternoon, Board. Alan Bacon, DPW Finance. I am here today to present resolution number 20, which is a request to waive the parking meter fees for the Indy Criterium. This event does not comply with the parking meter fee waiver policy per Municipal Code Section 986-104, civic sponsored events, which is why we have to present this to you, the board, for your approval. Now, the request is to waive 310 Zone 1 meters and 4 Zone 3 meters for a total request of $8,454. This is a two-day event. Joining me today is Jennifer Savar, and she is with Momentum Indy. She is here to answer any questions you may have. Jennifer.
Thank you.
Any questions for Alan or Jennifer? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve Resolution 20. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Second by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution 20 is adopted. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Borden, you're up next, Resolution 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm David Borden, Construction Administrator with DPW Engineering. This is Resolution number 21. The staff recommends that the Board of Public Works Board approve and authorize the Department of Public Works, DPW, to implement a new policy regarding change orders and work directive changes, WDC, that need to come to the board for approval. So, as you may recall, 8-9 weeks ago or so, we met up on the 24th floor to discuss what this policy change would, potentially look like and the rationale behind the request. The idea is to keep our projects, capital projects, moving along and to also prevent the number of change orders coming before the board for approval because it takes up an incredible amount of time for myself, for the board, for legal counsel, for the secretary, and for staff. And so we see all of that as probably being a little burdensome, overburdensome at that, and we feel that there's a way that could be reduced. So essentially, what we are saying or recommending, and then I can go down point by point, is the work directive changes, which you see in almost all of our change orders. That value was set by the board back in, I think, the 90s at $150,000. That is not changing. The idea here is that the policy requires that at the next available board after a WDC is signed, that it come before the board. So that means, in theory, I could have a WDC for $4 or $5 in overall, and I have to come to the board immediately thereafter. The idea here is that I would be able to, or the construction administrator would have the ability to run in aggregate a cumulative amount of WDCs up to a percentage, and that threshold being 5% of whatever the original contract amount is, then come before the board for approval. So that, in addition to being able to create new pay items, which right now is not being done via WDC, that's done via change order, and then also the addition of days to a contract, again, up to a threshold, that being, or recommended, up to 100 days, then coming before the board. So in theory, the process or the order and how things are happening isn't changing, it's just the when. It's not if, it's just when. And that is what we're hoping to be able to get approved here today. For example, we have 12 change orders on today's board. If this policy were in place today, that would have been reduced down to 2. So we would have been able to eliminate 10 change orders, which in aggregate is a ton of time that us staff are dealing with, and as well as you. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this? And Sabeko Jawanta has joined us. Welcome. Bob?
David, this is along the lines we spoke about here a few meetings ago, and I fully support such a policy. It's very reasonable. My only request, I guess you'd say, would be to, when that work directive change comes to the board to be approved, that there's a brief statement there on how the pricing was arrived, how you arrived at it, and for instance, if you did it based on the unit price that was in the contract already, you could state that or whatever, but just so we don't have to go hunting through to see how it was arrived. So I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. I will be more than happy to provide the backup documentation, the rationale, and explanation as to how and why we arrived at these costs. If there are new line items describing how we solicited pricing from the contractor and arrived at that. General conditions kind of limit what that can be already, so we will just continue to follow the conditions of the contract and then be able to provide that explanation at the board meeting. Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Additional questions for David? We're on Resolution 21, Sabeko. Priscilla, you have any questions on this one? Sabeko, you have any? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve Resolution 21. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Susie Cordy. Susie's all by herself over there. The room is tilting to the left. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution 21 is adopted. Let's go to bid awards, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a bid award for BM 32-132. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to award BM 32-132 Raymond Street over Madison Avenue to Beatty Construction in the total not to exceed amount of $1,745,000 on the basis that they are the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. This is a concrete slab bridge built in 1956 that is being rehabilitated. It is expected to be completed on or before May 26th of 2023. We received 2 bids, this being the lowest. They were within, I think, just a couple $4,000, almost $5,000 of the engineer's estimate, so we were basically spot on with our estimate on this one. OMWBD has reviewed their bid, granted them a waiver, and found that they are responsive and made a good faith effort. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve the bid award for BM-32-132. Moved by Sebeco Jawanza. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That bid award's approved, David. Bob Fry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Robert Fry, DPW's legal counsel. I'm here today to recommend the board approve and authorize the director to award supply agreements for warehouse supplies, each with a 1-year term, to Black & Company, Inc., Central Poly Bag Corporation, Fastenal Company, RFS Group, LLC, and Total Tool Supply, Inc., each of which was the lowest responsible and responsive bidder for those items to be awarded to them per their respective bids on invitation to bid number RFB-14 DPW-1482. In addition, staff recommends that the board reject the bid of Williams Distribution, LLC, because it was deemed non-responsive by OMWBD for failure to complete the minority participation paperwork. So the DPW Operations Division keeps a whole host of supplies in their warehouse, everything from shovels and pickaxes to safety goggles and safety vests. And we bid this out annually, so we have plenty of supply on hand. They're kept in the warehouse and assigned to employees as needed. In addition, we purchase janitorial supplies for the restrooms at our operations facilities. So to procure these items, we put out the aforementioned request for bids, seeking bids on 61 separate items. 11 bids were received on some or all of the items, and the 5 firms I listed above were deemed to be lowest responsible and responsive. In your memo, it lists all 61 items and which of the 5 firms are being awarded. Estimated expenditures on this agreement for the 1-year term are estimated to be $200,000. With that, I can try to answer any questions you may have.
Bob, we're rejecting the bid from, what was the name of the firm?
Williams Distribution, LLC. They just simply didn't fill out the minority participation paperwork that's part of the bid package. So
Okay.
non-responsive.
Bob?
Hey, Bob, one question. When we send out an RFQ, is there a summary bid sheet that shows what documents are required with the bid, or does that you have to go through the whole process?
I don't know that it's a summary, but I mean, if you looked at one of our bid documents, it's, you know, it's pretty clear there's a set of documents that the bidder has to complete and return. So.
Okay, good, thank you.
Additional questions for Bob? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to award the bids for supply agreement, for Black & Company, Inc., Central Poly Bag Corp., Fastenal Company, RFS Group, LLC, and Total Tool Supply, Inc., for RFB-14 DPW-1482, and reject the bid for Williams Distribution, LLC. Do I have a motion? Moved by Sebeco Jawanza. Is there a second? Second by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That bid award's approved. Thanks, Bob. Let's go to change orders, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is change order number 13 for LD 24007A. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 13 to LD 24007A, rehabilitation of downtown federal levees with Calumet Civil Contractors in the increased amount of $60,627 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $4,077,209.73, with no days added to the substantial and final completion dates. Levee project is essentially done on the south side, so the road side of the levee along 10th Street is the Fall Creek Trail. We thought it best to go ahead and resurface that trail from the suspension bridge that comes over Fall Creek just west of Indiana Avenue to the White River. This would, in essence, kind of complete any work that we're doing or need to do in the levee in the foreseeable future. It's in rough shape. While we're there, we thought it would make sense to go ahead and rehab it at this time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve change order 13 for LD-24-007A. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sebaco Juwanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 6 for SD 12039. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 6 for HIS Constructors for SD 12039, Brendan Ridge Neighborhood Drainage Improvements in the increased amount of $91,272.38 for a new total agreement amount not to exceed $2,426,663.78, with 0 days added to the substantial and final completion dates. So we are incorporating WDCs 9 and 10 into this change order. WDC number 9 is for, while I was out on site looking between phases 1 and phases 2 of this work, phase 1 I noticed a couple approaches and additional work that I thought best to address. So I've added that to the scope with the hopes of approval here to get that done, as well as due to utility delays. This project was supposed to be done last year. Utility delays caused it to go through the winter. We've been negotiating with the contractor and see it fit that since this project was delayed at no fault of theirs, that we give them some additional work for winter paving so we can get that road opened up throughout the winter so they could resume again in the 2022 season. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve change order 6 for SD-12-039. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sebaco Juwanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 3 for SD 20043. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 3 to SD 20043, City of Lawrence, Lawrence Trades District drainage improvements with Eagle Valley, Inc. in the increased amount of $1,248.86 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $1,116,942.71 and 0 days added to the substantial and final completion dates. Again, during the walkthrough, a couple areas that needed to be addressed with some HMA asphalt repair, nothing big, and then there were a couple outfalls where we wanted to further protect and armor them with riprap, so just large stone, and that's it, just for about $1,300. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one?
What was the stone that you said that you were using?
Riprap.
Riprap.
Riprap,
Okay.
yep. It's just a large stone, I mean, you know, several times larger than a fist. What we use on slopes or around, like I said, culverts or end sections like that. It's just an armoring to keep any erosion from taking place and allows us to not have to mow on any unsafe slopes.
What's the maintenance like on that? How often does it need to be replaced or things like that?
Never, in theory, should never have to be replaced. It's just limes crush or, large pieces of limestone. Now, you may occasionally have to spray for weeds, not very often, but in theory, it's more of what you have to do or would do would be for aesthetics, but functionality, you would never have to replace it.
Additional questions for David? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve change order number 3 for ST-20-043. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Second by Bob Perrin. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 7 for SD-20-044G. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 7 to SD-20-044, 47th and Richart neighborhood drainage improvements with HIS constructors in the increased amount of $12,618.13 for a new not to exceed total of $2,341,226.75 with 0 days added to the substantial and final completion dates of August 31st, 2022 and October 15th, 2022. We're incorporating WDCs 7 through 9. WDC number 7 was for the addition of a security guard for the safety of the crew. What had happened is one of the neighbors in this neighborhood drainage projects came out, was throwing rocks, threatening the lives of the workers. The police department was contacted. They came out, made contact with the resident. Apparently this individual is well known by the police department, knew him by first name, recommended that he take his medication, and so, but beyond that, they left. So we were asked by the contractor if we would pay for security, since that was not part of their contract, and agreed. So we now have security on site to ensure that everyone involved, including our staff and our inspectors, are safe. WDC number 8 is for the reconstruction of an inlet during the tie-in of one of the pipes. The condition of that inlet was in such condition that it required reconstruction. And then also there's a fire station right there. The MOT, or maintenance of traffic, essentially the phasing and process by which we were going to construct that road, needed to be altered at the request of the fire department so they can maintain access. And we were, again, happy to oblige, but this covers that cost. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve change order 7 for SD-20-044G. Moved by Sabeko Jawanda. Is there a second? Seconded by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 7 for SD-21001. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 7 to SD-21001, Upper Pogues Run Regional Detention Basin with Morphe Construction, an increased amount of $19,053.60 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $1,266,321.37, and no change to the final and substantial completion dates. So work directive number 9 is essentially the bulk of this, or all of this, and what it is during some excavation we encountered 120 tons of material that was contaminated with lead and barium, both heavy metals, and needed to be contained and then also disposed of properly per environmental standards. So if you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve change order number 7 for SD-21-001. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 1 for ST 13601. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute change order number 1 to ST 13601 East 56th Street concrete rehabilitation with Milestone Contractors in the increased amount of $12,300 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $2,667,838 and no increase in calendar days to the substantial and final completion dates. This is for the concrete rehab of 56th Street right in front of the high school. And with the amount of traffic that segment of road gets, the contractor had asked if we could include portable message signs, so essentially the arrow boards that you see and give you times of delay, et cetera. We thought that was very much a reasonable request. And then we followed the INDOT's pricing guides to come up with a price, and we are now including 2 of them in the contract. We think that's best for their safety and for the efficiency of the project to get it done as quickly as possible. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve change order number 1 for ST-13-601. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Second by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is change order number 1 for ST 2105. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute change order number 1 to project ST 2105, concrete pavement rehabilitation area number 3, with Milestone Contractors in the increased amount of $39,554.45 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $6,217,804.45 and 0 days added to the substantial and final completion dates. 2 things are being incorporated here. One being steel baskets for full-depth concrete patching. So this is the reinforcing for the concrete. What was initially expected to be partial depth, as we are uncovering and doing the demolition of the roadway, determining that a lot of that needs to be full-depth reconstruction. Therefore, we need the proper reinforcing for that, as well as one of the inlets was encountered that needed to be reconstructed. It was kind of a unique situation, and so we couldn't really get a unit price, so we did a time and material only for that. So that is what the force account work is referring to, is just a time and material for that inlet reconstruction. If you have any questions, more than happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve change order number 1 for ST-20-105. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. Next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is change order number 8 for ST-21-105. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute change order number 8 to ST-21-105, thoroughfare structural rehabilitation, Area 5, the CJC, with White Construction in the increased amount of $228,435.67 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $9,974,495.53 and no increase in calendar days added to the substantial and final completion dates. Both of these work directive changes, essentially the same thing for different line items. You may recall a few board meetings ago when we were amending the strip hatching contract with Milestone and Reith Riley. It was a strip hatching, also a material supply for our operations for paving and pothole filling. These contracts, this one in particular, as well as those others, were intended to be completed essentially by last year. several utility delays, a number of different circumstances, not at the fault of the contractor, has essentially extended this whole contract by a whole nother year. So essentially prices that they committed to in 2020, the beginning of 21, they couldn't honor here in 2022 due to all of the different factors that we're now seeing with materials, in particular petroleum. And so this is for a cost only to the petroleum, a direct markup for that on those materials for asphalt. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one?
Just confirming, you're saying that this increase is only for petroleum?
This is the petroleum cost exactly for that asphalt material that this is now, they precisely.
Additional questions? How are we doing on timeline for the CJC project there, David?
Well,
The question that you hate most from me. For those watching at home.
We are progressing. As I stated, how we're even having this change order right now. This project is close to a year behind. We're progressing to ideally get done by the end of this year, and that's what I do feel confident that we will.
End of this year. Writing it down.
Right.
Any other questions for David? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve change order number 8 for ST-21-105. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Second by Sabeko Juwanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you. This is change order number 1 for ST-22094. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 1 to ST-22094, the 2022 Thoroughfare Structural Rehabilitation Area 3 with Howard Asphalt in a decreased amount of $357,290.50 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $3,138,463.19 and 0 days added to the substantial and final completion dates. Again, both of these are basically related. When we are overlaying concrete roads or anytime we're repairing concrete roads, the preferred mechanism or process for repairing those is by, same type of material. Take concrete out, put concrete back in. The concrete underneath of this asphalt roadway is in solid enough condition that it still is a good base material, but it is not in good enough shape to where we can dowel in and reinforce it the way it should be. So we went back to the designer, conferred with them, and determined that by still doing those base repairs with asphalt in lieu of concrete, we're still getting the solid structure we need. But it actually ends up being a cost savings in material costs and labor costs. So essentially still getting the final end product, but changing the material and still arriving at the same end game. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve change order number 1 for ST-22-094. Moved by Priscilla? Yes. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Seconded by Bob Perrin. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
This is change order number 15 for ST-25161E. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 15 to ST-25161E Market Street Reconstruction, Illinois Street to Monument Circle with Morphe Construction in the increased amount of $1,707.80 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $2,903,467.85 and 1 day added to the substantial and final completion dates. This change order incorporates WDCs 34 and 35. 34 was for additional pavement removal at the southeast corner of Illinois Street and Market Street. And then WDC 15, I think we've talked about this before. There's these basements and vaults within the right-of-way underneath our sidewalk. And so we are trying to waterproof them and then also maintain drainage around them. What we found is that we couldn't have any weep holes. Essentially, for any type of brick or concrete building, you typically have weep holes for any moisture that get behind that structure to be able to leave. We couldn't put in weep holes, but we found is by adding a kind of a geocomposite material. It essentially provides a wicking barrier that can allow the water to migrate away and then into the trench drain and then ultimately away from the whole foundation. So this is what this $1,700 is buying us for both of those WDCs. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one?
Does that help with making sure that the maintenance of it lasts? Talk a little bit about what this cost would do to make sure that the structure and everything lasts.
Right. So ultimately, all we do in the engineering is combat water, more or less. So everything we're trying to do is keep water away from whatever it is that we want to protect. Allowing it to stay and kind of saturate this foundation would ultimately lead to us being out in Market Street again in the foreseeable future and repairing it. Keeping water away allows everything to stay sound. So yes, this is a maintenance measure that we're taking in place that is well worth its weight in gold.
Additional questions for David? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve change order number 15 for ST-25-161E. Moved by Sebaco Jawanza. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is change order number 7 for ST-25507. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 7 to ST-25507, Indianapolis Cultural Trail 2.0 with Beatty Construction in the increased amount of $88,789.18 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $17,129,296.32 and 149 days added to the substantial and final completion dates. We are incorporating work directive changes 17, 18, and 19. WDC 17 was for basically a time and material budget for the pothole maintenance repair along the corridor of the cultural trail. So what we don't like to do is mix our operations with our contractors in an area. It's easier just to define a geographical location and say, you are responsible. The condition of the road warrants some maintenance, and so therefore we're allowing the contractor a budget to make those repairs. WDC 18 is for a modified shallow foundation for the luminaires, the lighting. They are in conflict with at least 23 locations where there's utilities in our way. During the design process, we followed procedure, statute on coordinating, reaching out to all the utilities, asking for where their facilities were at. Several of the telecoms did not respond, and therefore they were not showing on the plans, and now we are contending with working around them. WDC number 19, similar situation. The irrigation system, we were planning on making a connection to it, but the plans that we had were not correct on the information that we received, and so therefore we have to make some modifications to it. In addition to all of this, the utility delays have basically compounded over time to be in aggregate 149 days that we are asking to be added to the substantial and final completion dates due to utility delays. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions? Seeing none, I'd ask for motion to approve change order 7 for ST-25-507. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Second by Bob Perrin. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is change order number 11 for ST 25523. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute change order number 11 to ST 25523, Delaware Street from Maryland Street to Vermont Street with Morphe Construction in the increased amount of $44,258.42 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $5,189,653.91 and no days added to the substantial and final completion dates. As you are probably aware, and as I'm happy to announce, that Delaware Street is, essentially completely done. We just finished the final pavement markings. There may be a few punch list items, but Delaware Street proper, for all intents and purposes, is done. The other kind of component of this project was Fort Wayne Street, the two-way conversion, which we are still actively working on. So essentially, these work directive changes, 41 through 45, are more or less a kind of a pre-final balancing for Delaware Street. One of them being the additional solid red MMA, which is just the red pavement markings you see out there for the buses, essentially delineating vehicular traffic from bus lanes. Those lane widths were different, by the request of Indigo than what were originally planned, so we're incorporating and compensating the contractor for that additional pavement marking work. Additional approach milling, so again, just like driveways and alleys and roadways leading into Delaware, in order to make it a nice flush transition, we had added additional approach milling and paving. WDC 13, when we're trying to connect all of the cabinets for the basically downtown signal interconnect, so the mechanism that allows all of our signals to talk to each other. Again, multiple utilities were in the way, so we had to snake around them, thereby increasing that cost. And then in a few locations, which is fairly standard, where we're trying to make sure we match all of the various driveways and alleys and everything, trying to keep it as flat as possible, but also make sure we don't have any standing water. We had to do a little bit of a wedge and level, so essentially just increase asphalt in a few locations, minor, less than an inch and a half in some locations, just to level that out. And then finally on Fort Wayne, some sidewalk removal and curb removal to essentially eliminate a driveway that's been closed since the 90s and therefore not needed at this time, or probably ever. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, ask for a motion to approve change order 11 for ST-25-523. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sabeko Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That change order is approved. David, let's go to final change order.
Thank you. This is change order number 6 final for ST 20051. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute final change order number 6 to ST 20051 German Church Road from 25th Street to 42nd Street, resurfacing with Calumet Civil Contractors in the decreased amount of $467,285.35 for a new total not to exceed contract amount of $2,448,713.77 and 184 calendar days added to the substantial and final completion dates. This is a final balancing change order. There were a lot of quantity for base repair that once we milled the roadway, determined that we did not need and was not necessary, which is a credit to us and funds that will ultimately go back into our budget. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Question for David on this one? Seeing none, ask for a motion to approve change order number 6 final for ST-20-051. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Seconded by Sabeko Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That final change order is approved.
Thank you.
David, take a break. We're going to go over to John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is John Bowen. I'm the Chief Engineer with the City of Indianapolis DPW. This first one is a professional services agreement for design for SD 23103 Thoroughfare Drainage Improvement Program Area 8. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute SD 23103 Thoroughfare Drainage Improvement Program Area 8, a new professional services agreement for design with First Group Engineering in the not-to-exceed total agreement amount of $150,030.50 with an agreement expiration date of December 31st, 2023. And this project is drainage improvements and pavement structural rehabilitation along Emerson Avenue from 21st Street to 30th Street and 32nd Street to 38th Street, as well as Sargent Road from Fall Creek Road to 96th Street. This agreement covers only the scoping phase of the design, so basically it's kind of the upfront. They'll develop a scope, analyze alternatives, gives us some costs of, what it takes to meet the basic scope of the project, and also alternatives that have some enhancements. So then we will, once this is over, evaluate those alternatives and move forward with design. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions for John on this one? And they were selected on RFQ, John?
Yes, they were selected under RFQ 2022-1.
Thank you. Any additional questions for John? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve the professional service agreement for SD-23-103. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That agreement is approved. Let's go to the next one.
Thank you. The next one is a professional services agreement for design for ENG 22-005. It's an on-call transportation design services with GAI Consultants Incorporated. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute ENG 22005 on-call transportation design services, which is a new professional services agreement for design with GAI Consultants Incorporated in a not-to-exceed total agreement amount of $500,000 with an agreement expiration date of December 31st, 2024. The consultant has made a good faith effort to meet all the XBE requirements, and the vendor was selected under RFQ 2022-1. The main focus or main use of this on-call will be for our 2023 residential street reconstruction project design. We're planning on getting rolling on the scoping of those streets in the fall of this year and moving forward into design for the construction next year. So with that, I can take any questions.
Questions for John on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve the professional service agreement for ENG-22-005. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That professional service agreement's been approved. And let's go to amendments. Shannon, you're up.
Good morning, or good afternoon, excuse me. Shannon Killian, the Stormwater Administrator for DPW Engineering. I'm here to present amendment number 3 to SD 19-073, Dr. A.J. Brown, 30th and Keystone Drainage Improvements Project for the consultant of Wessler Engineering Incorporated. The Engineering Division recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to ratify and execute Amendment 3 between Wessler Engineering Incorporated and the City of Indianapolis for SD 19-073, Dr. A.J. Brown, 30th and Keystone Drainage Improvements, with no change in the total agreement amount of $665,099.66. This amendment will provide updated rates and extend the agreement expiration date to December 31st, 2024. This is a project that bids this fall with the construction starting in 2023 and the construction's planned to conclude in 2024. So that's the reason to push out that their contract date is just to make sure that they can continue to provide services as needed during construction. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Shannon? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve Amendment 3 to SD-19-073. Moved by Sabeko Jawanza. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, we're back to you.
Thank you. This is amendment number 4 to ENG 18019, on-call transportation design services with DLZ Indiana, LLC. The Engineering Division recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute amendment number 4 to ENG 18019, on-call transportation design services, a professional services agreement with DLZ Indiana, LLC, in the increased amount of $520,000 for a new total not to exceed agreement amount of $1,270,000, additional scope of services, and updated rate schedules. This amendment will also extend the agreement expiration date to December 31st, 2024. I do need to point out in the description, it references project number ST191105 in the description. That is actually incorrect. This amendment is going to go towards ST24113. And basically, this project is part of the 2024 concrete street rehab. And it includes 11th Street from Pennsylvania to Delaware Street, 30th Street from Ritter Avenue to Campbell Avenue, and Georgetown Road from 38th Street to Lafayette Road. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions for John on this one? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve Amendment 4 for ENG-18-019. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Seconded by Sabeko Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, next one.
Thank you. This is amendment number 4 to ENG 19014, on-call transportation engineering services with Resolution Group Incorporated. The engineering division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute amendment 4 to ENG 19014, on-call transportation engineering services, a professional services agreement with Resolutions Group Incorporated in the increased amount of $100,000 for a new total not to exceed agreement amount of $700,000, no change to scope of services and no change to consultant rates. This amendment will also extend the agreement expiration date to December 31st of 2023. And this amendment, basically this project is for AL 25365. It's resurfacing of Mary Street and several alleys around the College Avenue area. The project was partially funded for design previously, so this actually allows us to go ahead and complete the design agreement. So it's just kind of additional funding to complete that project. And there's 3 alleys, 2 of which are HMA, and what will be placed with HMA. There's one that does have a brick section, and we will be resetting those bricks and then replacing the portion that doesn't have bricks with HMA. So with that, I can answer any questions.
What is HMA?
I'm sorry, HMA is hot mix asphalt. So some of these the alleys are actually gravel right now. So what we'll be doing is actually replacing them back with asphalt mixture. Sorry about that.
That sounds like a great name for a rock band.
And John, just for the record, for those who might see this, this is being jointly funded by the Chatham Arch neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
Because, David?
We don't do alleys, and so this is, they are paying for these. We are doing Mary Street, which is a actual side street, but the rest of them is all being funded entirely by, the neighborhood.
Thank you. I could just hear phone calls coming from city councilors saying, wait a minute, I thought you didn't do alleys. Additional questions for John? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve Amendment 4 for ENG-19-014. Moved by Sabeko Jawanza. Is there a second? Seconded by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, next one.
All right, the next one is amendment number 2 to ENG 21012. It's an on-call transportation engineering services with Beam Longest and Neff LLC. The engineering division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute amendment number 2 to ENG 21012, on-call transportation engineering services, a professional services agreement with Beam Longest and Neff LLC in the increased amount of $520,000 for a new total not to exceed agreement amount of $1,385,000, additional scope of services, and updated rate schedules. This amendment will also provide no change to the agreement expiration date. And this amendment covers work on 3 different projects under this on-call, the first of which is ST 22099, which is Sector 4 of the 2022 residential street reconstruction projects. We had some additional design costs as we got into the evaluation of the pavement. Some sections of roadway required full depth reconstruction as opposed to resurfacing, so a little bit more major work was necessary on those. So that was, it covers a portion of the amendment covers that. In addition, BM 44068 is a rehabilitation of the Southport Road Bridge over White River. Beam Longest and Neff has actually completed a scoping report for that bridge and has recommended that it be a superstructure replacement. However, in the interim, there is a hole in the deck, which is currently covered with a steel plate. So a portion of this amendment will fund the interim design and fix for the hole in the deck. And lastly, a portion of the funds will go to ST 24114, which is concrete rehabilitation 2024 project, which includes 10 segments of roadway. And as part of that, the consultant is adding CTL as a sub-consultant for the geotechnical investigation for that project. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for John on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve Amendment 2 for ENG-21-012. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sabeko Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, next one.
Thank you. This is amendment number 1 to ENG 22003, on-call transportation design services with United Consulting Engineers Incorporated. The engineering division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the director to execute amendment 1 to ENG 22003, on-call transportation design services, a professional services agreement with United Consulting Engineers, Inc., with no change to total agreement amount, no change to scope of services, and updated rate schedules. This amendment will provide no change to the agreement expiration date. And this amendment was necessary. There was some additional work during construction. We had to add some curb ramps during the design and some ped push buttons at Illinois and Kessler Boulevard. And there was some additional work during construction for the design. Basically, the existing bridge plans that we had, we found out it wasn't actually built exactly like the existing plan, so there were some adjustments that were needed. However, the consultant was able to utilize money that was saved in other areas of the contract and apply it to the changes there, so resulting in a no-cost amendment. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions for John on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve Amendment 1 for ENG-22-003. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Seconded by Bob Perrin. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, next one.
All right, thank you. This is amendment number 5 to BM 11097. It's Kessler Boulevard over White River with Beam Longest and Neff, LLC. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute amendment number 5 to BM 11097, Kessler Boulevard over White River, a professional services agreement with Beam Longest and Neff, LLC, with no change to the total agreement amount, additional scope of services, and no change to consultant rates. This amendment will also provide no change to agreement expiration date. And this amendment was necessary to, we basically added 3 additional bump outs on Brookside Parkway South on this project. And overall, this was a pedestrian safety improvement project. And these bump outs allowed us to cut down on the pedestrian crossing width and make it a little bit safer. It was found that sometimes with bump outs, you have to kind of look at how the drainage works around these intersections, and this was an opportunity we found that could improve. So, with
John, are we on the Beam Longest BM 11? Is there bump outs on Kessler?
No.
I think you jumped ahead to the next one.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I totally did.
You got a lot of projects going on, so
Yeah.
let's not forget about the Kessler Bridge, because I get a lot of calls about that one. When's that one going to be done?
The Kessler Bridge, that one is scheduled to be completed in the fall of 2023. So we are on BM 11097.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. This one adds a fee for the design of additional curb ramps and pedestrian push buttons at the Illinois and Kessler Boulevard, and additional work for the construction revision. So,
Any questions for John on this one? He said, is there days added to it?
no change to the agreement expiration date.
Additional questions for John? Seeing none, I ask for a motion to approve Amendment 5 for BM-11-097. Moved by Sabeko Jawanza. Is there a second? Seconded by Priscilla Keith. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. John, your last one.
Okay.
Now we'll get to some bump outs.
Yes. Now we'll get to this one. This is amendment number 3 for CW 25004, pedestrian crash zone 11A, with Clark Dietz Incorporated. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute amendment number 3 to the professional service agreement dated December 12, 2018 with Clark Dietz Incorporated for CW 25004, pedestrian crash zone 11A, in the increased amount of $14,400 for a new agreement amount not to exceed $383,667, and no change to the agreement expiration date of September 15th, 2023. This one is actually the one where we added the bump outs to Brookside Parkway South. This was a pedestrian safety project that we took on, and this was an additional intersection that we added those as a pedestrian safety enhancement. With that, I can take any questions.
Questions for John on this one? Seeing none, I ask for motion to approve Amendment 3 for CW-25-004. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sabeko Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. David, we're going to go back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is amendment number 6 for ENG 19018. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute amendment number 6 to ENG 19018, on-call transportation design and inspection services, a professional services agreement with Hanson Professional Services in the increased amount of $260,000 for a new total not to exceed agreement amount of $1,160,000, and no change to the scope and services and updated rate schedules. This amendment will also provide no change to the agreement expiration date of December 31st, 2022. So this is for two full-time FTEs, or so two FTEs, both one in design, one in construction, so as a staff augmentation to our staff. They've been on staff. We have greatly benefited from them being on staff, and so this carries them throughout the rest of the year. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve Amendment 6 for ENG-19-018. Moved by Priscilla Keith. Is there a second? Seconded by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. David, last one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is amendment number 1 for ST 21105. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute amendment number 1 to ST 21105, Inspection Services, a professional services agreement with Corodino Group in the increased amount of $367,550.34 for a new total not to exceed agreement amount of $1,079,172.71, and no change to the scope of services. This amendment will also provide a change to the agreement expiration date to December 31st, 2023. Previous in the board during change orders, as you recall, we had an increase in the asphalt prices for this project due to its duration being extended nearly a year. This is experiencing obviously the same thing. We have professional inspectors overseeing this project. Their time is in essence nearly doubling. Therefore, we have to amend this agreement to carry out through the end of this year, as well as additional fee for those hours. If you have any questions, happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David on this one? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve Amendment 1 for ST-21-105. Moved by Sebago Jawanza. Is there a second? Second by Susie Cordy. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment's approved. With consent of the board, I'd have David take both final acceptances together. Do I have consent? David, take them together, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the final acceptance for BR 07020. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute final acceptance for project BR 07020, Admirals Point Bridge replacement with Duncan Robertson. The final contract amount is $2,314,758.31. And then also, finally, the final acceptance for CL 02060. The Engineering Division staff recommends the Board of Public Works approve and authorize the Director to execute final acceptance for Morphe Construction for CL 02060, 5998 West 79th Street culvert replacement. For final acceptance, the total contract amount was $245,925.10. So final lien waivers have been received. All vendors have been paid. Final invoicing has been completed, and we have come to before the board previously for final balancing change orders. So this is final acceptance, end of story. Any questions? Happy to try and answer them at this time.
Questions for David? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the final acceptance for BR-07-020 and CL-02-060. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Sebago Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those final acceptances are approved. We'll go to other business, and our walk-on, Bob Fry, you're up. You're standing in between us and leaving.
I will try to be brief, despite your 4-page memo. in front of you, which you can read at your leisure. Again, Bob Fry, DPW's legal counsel. I'm here today to recommend the board approve and authorize the director to enter into an agreement with Carrier and Gable, Inc. to supply all equipment and materials necessary to replace the existing modems and related hardware with upgraded versions due to the sunsetting of 3G telecom service in each of the city's school zone flashing beacons. And this agreement will also include 5 years of modem-to-modem cellular service and 5 years of RTC Connect software service, all at an estimated cost not to exceed $1,038,906. So by way of some background, between 2015 and 17, working in conjunction with NDOT through a federal funding program, these flashing school zone beacons have been installed. I'm sure you've all seen as you drive. There's 594 of them around the county, serving 170 different schools, both public and private, across different school systems. So as you know, all these schools have different schedules. And we have situations in the wintertime where there may be a 2-hour delay to the start of school due to ice and snow or some other emergency. So this system, this RTC Connect software allows us to remotely program each of the beacons to meet that school district or particular school's schedule. Well, as mentioned, these modems that are in these beacons operate on 3G technology, which the telecom industry just retired recently, so we have to upgrade these to modems that'll operate on 4G and 5G technology. So Carrier and Gable, this particular, there's a lot of background here, but it's in your memo. This project was done in 3 phases. Again, being a federal aid project, NDOT bid the project, selected the contractor, and we had 10% cost participation. But basically, after many of these were put in phase 1 and phase 2, when phase 3 came around to install the rest of them, this is when I guess the realization came about that we can't possibly run around and manually program 594 beacons. Perhaps we could do that for each school year, but it's impossible to do for a 2-hour delay, for example. So that is when NDOT sought out the correct kind of hardware and software that would allow us to do that, which is this RTC Connect software. So now here we are 5 years later, the cell service and the modem service, the cell service and the software service expire this year, and again, we need to upgrade to modern technology. So Carrier and Gable happens to be the sole provider of our RTC Connect supplies and materials in Indiana. So we really had no choice but to go to Carrier and Gable. Therefore, we did not compete this project. But there, as outlined in your memo, there are a number of special procurement provisions in Indiana code, purchasing code, that allows us to sometimes avoid competition when the situation is right. This is one. Again, we have to have modems that are compatible with this RTC software. Nothing else would work. So there are single source of supply and other provisions of Indiana code that allow us to do this without competition. However, given the importance of this for school safety, as well as the substantial resources the city's invested in this system and will invest to upgrade them, we felt it best to still present this to the board for approval. It's not clear, strictly speaking, that the board has to approve this, but again, we thought it was prudent to bring it before you to air it publicly, explain what we're doing. It is noteworthy that Carrier and Gable, even though they are the sole provider, they will not do the actual installation of the modems, but they will subcontract that to the Hoosier Company, Inc., which is a certified women-owned business enterprise. So overall, there will be a 39% WBE participation under this contract. And the Office of Minority and Women Business Development has looked at that and has approved. So with that, the staff also requested the board also approve entering into this contract with Carrier and Gable. With that, I will try to answer any questions you may have. I will tell you that this project's primarily been led by Nathan Sheets, our traffic engineer. He is on vacation, so I can do my best to answer them, but if they're too technical, I'd have to defer to Nathan.
Questions for Bob? Bob?
I guess not so many questions, but since we're just looking at this, just to check for reasonableness, if you back out the cellular service that's noted in here, it looks like first 3 phases, we've got an investment of about $4.7 million in equipment, and this is $400,000 to upgrade it, so 10% or whatever, that seems reasonable. If you take a look at the labor and equipment cost, it looks like to upgrade, it looks like about $600 a modem. So I guess, within reason, that is. I guess I do have one question. Does NDOT, have they had a chance to take a look at this? I mean, would they consider this to be reasonable? They seem to, they're the ones who specified the system, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, they did. NDOT, and the numbers you see in there, too, those total cost of each of the phases, this was 90% federally funded through NDOT and 10% funded by us, but the system is ours. So, yeah, NDOT is not participating in this upgrade. But I do want to note, your math is not incorrect, but, and I didn't address this in the memo, part of the cost of the new modems is a 5-year warranty. It's a unique warranty that it basically says if, say, 6G comes out in the next 5 years, they'd replace these modems for free. So it's kind of a little bit of insurance, I suppose. I don't think that's likely to happen, but it is part of the cost.
Thank you. Additional questions for Bob? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agreement with Carrier and Gable, Inc. for TS-21-011. Moved by Susie Cordy. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Sebeco Jawanza. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That agreement's approved. Any other business to come before the board? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Bob Perrin. Is there a second? Seconded by Sebeco Jawanza. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Yay.